I'm Jon Caldara. Welcome. A little later on in the program, we're going to be talking taxes and fees. You want to stick around for that. But first, those lawless breakers out there, those people who are actually going out and congregating and killing people. Even those evil people deserve a lawyer, and that lawyer right now is Randy Corporon. You hear him on KNUS, read him in all sorts of things. Randy, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here, John. I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you. It's got good booze.
Yeah.
Speaking of having good booze, we have some mutual friends. And let's start off with Jennifer Houlihan, who's been on this program. She's the owner of Water's Edge Winery, and she opened up her business in defiance of the law, and they came down on her like a ton of bricks. She's your client. You also have a couple others who are restaurateurs mostly who are trying to do the same thing. Why is it important that your clients be able to open up their businesses?
Well, Jennifer is a great example as someone who has focused the last 7 years of her life on trying to make this dream come true. And her house is at stake. She used it to secure her small business loan. Restaurants are a very low margin for profit business. And, after several years, she was actually starting to make a profit and having a business that was going to be able to sustain her. And, of course, being shut down, that put an end to that. And when they started allowing the curbside and pickup service, she tried. She tried to accommodate that the best she could. But it doesn't, with those margins so thin, a small business cannot survive. And they don't have the resources to ride out 3 months or a year.
I've also learned, restaurants are different. It's not my world. Restaurants at 50% capacity still go bankrupt because they make their money on Friday and Saturday nights. Some restaurants, like a pizza place, could do curbside and delivery. But if you're serving fresh fish and a hot steak, it cannot and does not work. She really, I think, was the first one jumping into this civil disobedience, and let me compare her and some of these others to Rosa Parks, saying, no, this is wrong. Free people ought to be able to freely associate. And tell me if I've got this right, too. She took massive precautions to make sure things were safe, distancing tables, utensils, cleaning, all the rest. And no one was forced to go. What happened when she opened?
Well, we were told when we finally met with Tri-County Health that they'd had at least 17 complaints. Neighbors just went crazy. There was social...
Who are these snitches?
I know.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
I don't understand them.
Yeah, she wasn't going out in the street and roping them and pulling them into the restaurant. And cleanliness and social distancing, it was all built in. And she's got a beautiful patio where there's, the two best disinfectants that we have, fresh air and sunlight. After she reopened, this is really interesting. We negotiated a kind of a truce and got her reopened back to curbside and compliance. No other penalties for people who were afraid of this, People started coming to her parking lot. And I say her parking lot. She has use of the parking lot. It's her landlord's parking lot. And
she's in a mall area, strip mall-ish area. So it's a shared parking lot. You go to different places, right?
And people were setting up tables and chairs, and they were getting her takeout food. And then later they opened it up so you could actually buy an individual drink and take it in a cup. And they were setting up their tables and chairs out there and consuming them. And the Tri-County Health Department got very upset about that. We've got more complaints, and I wrote them back and I said, that's not her parking lot. So if you want to come and arrest or hassle those individual citizens, come on. They haven't so far. So
it's just ridiculous. Tell me about the other two clients you have.
Sure. The one with the most notoriety right now, I think, is C&C Cafe. They opened up on Mother's Day after trying for weeks and weeks to make it in their Castle Rock location. And they had just let a few friends know, a few people know that they were going to open up, and they got mobbed. Hundreds of people came. So, the idea of social distancing and everything kind of went out the window that day. I don't think it was really their fault because they had no idea so many people would come. But the video of the inside of that restaurant has over 4.5 million hits.
Wow.
And it got the attention of Governor Jared Polis, who held a press conference and singled them out, called them by name, and said that their license, he was ordering the health department to suspend their license indefinitely or at least 30 days, whichever comes first.
Right.
So it's one of the reasons that the first lawsuit we're going to file, probably almost certainly will be filed when this show airs, is for CNC Cafe, because they're still shut down.
And was their license permanently or temporarily revoked?
Well, it was confusing at first because they have two locations, one in Colorado Springs, one in Castle Rock, and they only have one license number. So I read the order suspending their license as shutting down both locations. In subsequent conversations with the Attorney General's office, we learned that they were only closing down Castle Rock. So they're still open in Colorado Springs.
But even in Castle Rock, they can't do takeout, they can't...
No, nothing.
So they are closed.
Yeah.
By order of the state?
Yeah, order of the Colorado Department of Health at the behest of Governor Polis.
Wow. A quick mention on the third one out in Rifle, because this is getting some national attention as well.
Yeah, Lauren Boebert is a congressional candidate, and she's the woman who stared down Beto O'Rourke when he was in Aurora. She said she showed up packing her sidearm, and she said, "Hell no, Beto, you're not taking our guns." And that sort of launched her into national fame. She already had the Shooter's Grill, which is a place where someone had been murdered in the alley behind her location up in Rifle. And she couldn't think of any way to keep people safe. Police aren't that close or anything else. So she started packing, and her waitresses and other staff started packing. It became a national thing.
It became a selling point because you have these waitresses with 6 shooters on their hips.
Yeah.
And it became a theme.
Yeah.
So probably the safest restaurant in all Colorado.
Without a doubt.
I wouldn't try to steal somebody's tips from there.
And you don't want to mess with Lauren either.
Right.
She's tough.
You've got a suit going against, or you're going to be filing the suit, so let's talk as if it's already happened. Asking for what? Asking whom for what?
Sure. We've got all kinds of options available. People are talking about, class actions, federal court, violation of civil rights, things like that. But the first thing we need to do is get Colorado reopened. So we're going to file individual lawsuits, and likely already have, for these 3 particular restaurants. One will be in Douglas County for CNC, one will be in Garfield County for Shooters, and one will be in Arapahoe County for Jennifer and Water's Edge Winery.
So these are complaints against the state or localities?
Yeah, they're complaints against the governor in his official capacity, against the Colorado Health Department, and in the case of CNC and Water's Edge, against Tri-County Health.
And you're asking them to do?
We're asking for declaratory and injunctive relief. Stop the state from enforcing these overbroad, arbitrary, capricious, unconstitutional orders, not laws, orders and edicts, and let these businesses open back up.
You touched on it there. Under what principle are you saying these are unconstitutional? Let my client open. Why is it unconstitutional?
Well,
the governor has emergency order powers. Previous legislatures have given the governor those powers.
Yep.
Local health boards like Tri-State, unelected bureaucrats have now the authority, the legal authority to do so, and now they're finally exercising it to save people's lives.
Yeah.
How are you going to convince a judge this is unconstitutional? What part of the Constitution are they?
Sure. The first claim is that the government has gone ultra-virus over a virus. And ultra-virus is a Latin term that means you've gone beyond the scope of your authority. There's no question that the Colorado legislature after 9/11 gave far too sweeping and unchecked powers to the governor. But no matter the fact that the state and the state legislature permitted that, you can't run up against someone's fundamental liberty interests and their constitutional rights, the right to peacefully assemble, the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, including business interests. And so that's part of the tension that goes on. John.
But I can hear the argument, which is, well, listen, we have health codes. You can't keep dead rats in the kitchen of Shooter's Grill. You can't do that because it's not good for the health and safety of our people. And everyone, okay, well, you can't have people peaceably assembling for the exact same reason now, because you're going to put people in health danger. Mm-hmm. Perfectly perfectly reasonable.
Sure. You know, it's always a balancing act. There's always a tension between what is overburdensome government relations, government regulation, and versus people's rights to fundamentally live their lives here in America. And I don't know, none of my clients, none of the dozens and dozens of churches and restaurants and other businesses that I've talked to were complaining the first 2 weeks into this emergency, even the first month into this emergency. But then the governor extended, just by himself, extended his emergency powers another 30 days. And a week or so ago, he extended them for another 30 days. And so at some point, you can no longer sustain the fact that you're in some kind of an emergency. Do you know that there are 12 states in the country that comprise over 80% of the deaths in the country right now? Colorado comprises 1% of the deaths in the country. And all of Colorado was being treated just like Michigan or some of the other, heavy death states. And now a place like Douglas County with about 635 deaths is being treated the same, for the most part, as Denver or Arapahoe County or some of the other counties that still have some fairly significant numbers.
I find it fascinating that the narrative changes. The narrative was flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Well, stick a big mission accomplished sign over that one.
Yeah.
We have not had a run on hospital beds. We've built out the capacity. We don't have a run on ventilators. We've flattened the curve. So if that was the goal, and I think that's what you alluded to, was
Sure.
saying 2 weeks, well, we've done that.
Yeah.
So now what the hell are you doing? What is this authoritarianism? We've only got a couple minutes, but let me ask you kind of the larger question. Your clients are involved in civil disobedience. I don't think they refuse to sit in the back of the bus. And you're a lawyer. You can't say break the law. You can't tell people to encourage them to break the law. But I want people to look at these folks as real Rosa Parks. And a lot of people thought what Rosa was doing was dangerous and bad for society and all the rest. But history has proved them right. Talk to me a little bit about dissent and social civil disobedience.
Sure. Well, you're 100% right as an attorney. You know, I can advise folks the consequences, the law, their choices, their options, how I see the different options playing out. I've been very careful not to tell anybody, stay open, violate, or whatever. If you need me to work out to try and get you reopened on a partial basis, whatever your priorities are, those are my priorities. But as a citizen, as an American, as a Coloradan, it's absolutely essential that more and more people step up and say, enough is enough, it's time to open Colorado, because if there's only 3 or 4 or 5 restaurants, they can continue to target them. We saw the gym chained up in New Jersey this morning, I think, and but if there's dozens or hundreds of businesses saying, no mas, you're creating a depression, you're killing my future, my kids, my grandkids, then the government has to stop and pay attention.
Let me lay it out this way. And Jennifer does this. The others do it. And they're okay. They get wrapped down, but they're okay. If they spur another 3 to do it, and those 3 spur another 6 to do it, and then 18, and it starts to grow exponentially, that's where civil disobedience changes the law, which is, you can have this law, but you will never be able to keep up with it. That's what I'm hoping for. And I think I'm happy to support these organizations. I'm happy to give them a tip. I'm happy to get them the publicity they need. So I think what we've done a lousy job at is making clear that being unemployed also leads to terrible health consequences, whether it's suicide, depression, health issues, hunger, and that we need to get people back to work. This is not about making evil profits. It's about getting people their dignity and their jobs back. And that only happens when this happens. And that's why this is so crucial. It's not COVID. It is unemployment.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, thank you as always.
John, it's a pleasure.
Stay tuned. If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.